Everyone, I got a quick devotional thought for you today, and I don't actually have a scripture specifically for this because the story of it kind of expands across three different books of the Bible, all in different times and different places, written by different people, but they're all about the same event. And that's what I want to really focus on today. It's about the rebuilding of the Jerusalem temple after the exile in Babylon. See, there had been there finally got to be a good king who would let the people go back. And it ended up happening kind of in waves of how different things went. The first one who got to go was Nehemiah. And Nehemiah went back to Jerusalem with his group of people and he rebuilt the walls. He took care of all the people around to make sure that they weren't going to attack the city anymore. The few refugees who had found their way back to Jerusalem were safe in their city for the first time in hundreds of years. Nehemiah built the walls. Not long after that, Zerubbabel, best name in the Old Testament in my opinion, Zerubbabel went to the king and said, I want to take the priests back and I want to rebuild the temple. And the king lets Zerubbabel go, gives him his charge, and allows him to pass through his land. And he goes back and he rebuilds the temple. And he puts priests back in there, and he starts the religious ceremonies for God back up in Jerusalem. The third person who comes along then is Ezra. Ezra comes as the prophet of the Lord. He's going to become the voice for God in Jerusalem. And he gets to go there because Nehemiah has built the walls and made it safe, and Zerubbabel has given him a temple to preach from and to have as a holy center. Ezra goes and begins to talk to the people on behalf of God. And as I kind of went through this today, I was reading through the different aspects of it. I thought, any one of those wouldn't have been successful without the other two. Nehemiah built the walls, and that was great, but it didn't do anything to honor God. Zerubbabel came and built the temple, which he couldn't have done if Nehemiah hadn't built the walls. And if Ezra hadn't come to fill it, it would have just been an empty building. Ezra needed the temple, and he needed it to be safe. All three of them needed each other and needed the work of the person before them so that they could accomplish God's divine plans. I think that's important to remember as we start to come through this time and start to think about getting back to church, and even the times that when we are back. It's important to remember that our own faith is built upon the people before us. We come from a rich tradition, whether that be in our own families or in our churches or in even our denominations or just being a Christian in general. Things continue to build and grow. And we can't grow as Christians without looking back at the people who came before us and the faith that the church had and the faith that our family had and the faith that that cloud of witnesses had before us. So in a special way today with that story, and if you want to look up the story, it's in the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah, a little bit in 2 Chronicles. You can go find it if you really want to, but believe me as I tell you the story that story means a lot to us today because we can't have our own faith without building the others. Today, tomorrow, the next couple days, take some time to think about those people in your life that came before you, that helped build your faith and helped establish where we are today. It's great to be able to know that the church that we're going to go back to has stood for 100 years or more. And God willing, it'll stand for another 100. And someday someone will look back on this time and say, thank goodness this person did this. Thank goodness this person had the faith to continue the traditions to where we are today. I invite you to think about those people, thank God for those people in our past, and pray that we may be those people in the future for others. Thank you for being with me today. We will see you on Sunday.